Hi, this is Scott Dudley, and in this video we're going to take a look at how to add scroll depth tracking to Google Analytics and set it up in Google Tag Manager. So the very first thing that we'll want to do is go into Google Analytics, and there is actually a native inbuilt scroll tracking feature in Google Analytics, but the problem with that is that it only fires when somebody hits 90% of the page. So if they only go down half of the page, then it's not going to show a scroll tracking event. So what we want to do is go over to admin and then data streams, and then you click on your data stream here, and then you'll see enhanced measurement. Okay, so if we then click on the gear, and you'll see here that there is scrolls. We want to turn this off so that it's not automatically capturing scroll events each time that a visitor gets to the bottom of the page. So you turn that off, click save, of course, to save the changes. Then we'll jump over to Google Tag Manager and we'll go over to variables. And we want to make sure that the scroll depth tracking variables are enabled. So if you take a look at built-in variables, and this is in alphabetical order, you should see scroll depth threshold, scroll depth units, and scroll direction. If you don't see those three, then just come up the top here to configure, click on that. Scroll down to where it says scrolling and tick or check each one of these options here. And then once you close that, you should see them appearing here as variables, built-in variables. So once that's set up, we then go to triggers and we click on new here on the right hand side, and we click anywhere in this area here to open up the trigger type. And for that we want scroll depth, click on that. And then we're given the option between vertical scroll depth and horizontal scroll depth. So in most cases, well, 99% of cases, I would suggest that people are interested in vertical scroll depth. So when people are scrolling up and down the page, whereas horizontal scrolling is scrolling left to right. And there might be the odd use case for that, but I've never come across one. So usually what you'll want is the vertical scroll depths for scrolling up and down. And then inside of that, we've got two options here for percentages and pixels, which is pretty self-explanatory really. Percentages will show you how far down the page as a percentage the person has scrolled, whereas pixels will show you in the amount of pixels that they've scrolled down the page. So if you're going to use the pixels option, then I would recommend that you do it by increments of 500 or 1,000. So you just put commas in between them. So 500, 1,000, 1,500, oh, that's 100, sorry. 2,000 and so on and so forth, or you could just do it 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. It's really up to you. But what I would recommend that you would do instead is use the percentages option. That's what most people would use, and generally the most accepted ones to pop in are 10, 25, 50, 75 and 90. So it's generally not recommended to go below 10% or above 90%. Because the accuracy of those ones, once you get that far down the page or at the top of the page, the very top of the page, it drops off a bit. And of course, once again, you put the comma in between each amount. And then finally, it gives you the option for when it's going to trigger, whether it's on all pages where GTM is set up, or if it's just on some pages. So if you use the some pages option, then probably what you would use would be a page path or a page URL, and then you can restrict it to only fire on that actual page. So you could do something like page URL or page path contains thank you or whatever your page path contains. If you've got more than one page that you want to have it firing on, then what you can do is select, let's say, page path or page URL, and then use the matches regex, and then you're going to use the pipe symbol on the keyboard. The pipe is above the enter key, well, it is at least on my keyboard. So let's just say you want to use it for pages that have thank you in the URL or in the path. You'd select the pipe option here and then maybe put in order page. And then if you want to add in a third, then you could just pop in, I don't know, page 3 or something. And whenever somebody visits either of these 3 pages, whether it's thank you, order page or page 3, then the trigger will fire. Whereas if you did it this way, where you have page path contains thank you and then order page, it would only fire when both of these occur. So that's why I suggested the regex match previously, where you just do it on one line, put the pipe symbol to separate them, matches regex, and then it will fire on any of the page paths that you put in here, remembering that you can use page URL or any of these other options here. So for this particular case, we're going to say that it fires on all pages, and then we'll click on save to save the trigger. Need to name the trigger, so scroll depth is a pretty good name for the trigger, and then the trigger is saved. So then the next step is to create a tag to pass it through to Google Analytics 4. So that's where we'll go over here to new up the top here to create a new tag. The tag configuration that we want, if we click on this area here, is Google Analytics GA4 event. Now you need to select your configuration tag. So in my particular case, I've already set this up with GA4 configuration. Okay, so if you've already got it set up, then you can select that, or you can manually set the ID, and to get that from GA4, you would go back to your data stream, which is under admin data streams. Click on the arrow here and then copy the measurement ID here. Paste it in here. You can do it either way, but personally I prefer to set up the GA4 configuration tag and then just use that. So the event name for this will be scroll, and then we need to set an event parameter, and we will call it scroll %. So make sure that you put the underscore in there to join it up. And then for the value, that's where we want to click on this brick thing here with the plus sign, and that will give us our list of variables. So we've already set up the scroll depth variables, and the one that we want here is the scroll depth threshold. And that way it will pass through the value of how far the person scrolls down the page. So if they scroll down 10%, it will fire, and then another, if they scroll down 25%, it will fire again, 50%, it will fire again, and so on and so forth. And then the final step here is to set the trigger. So, of course, that is the scroll depth trigger that we set up before. Then you would name the trigger. So let's just say GA4 scroll depth, and then you would save the tag as well. And then finally, once you've done all of that, you then need to submit the changes. You can see here it's got workspace changes 5. So until you actually submit the changes, they won't go live. What you might want to do before you submit, though, is to actually debug and preview to confirm that it's working. I will cover that in a separate video. I won't cover it in this video, otherwise it will go for too long. But to submit the changes, we just click on submit up the top here. We'll give it a version name. We'll just say added scroll depth tracking. And then we would click on publish. And if we go back here to workspace, workspace changes 0. So all of those changes have been made live, and now it would just be a matter of testing and debugging that in, you can do it in either GTM or GA4 just to make sure that it's working. So hopefully that was helpful. If you've got any questions, just let me know in the comments.